Yo, if you're thinking about setting up a new environment for your projects, applications, whatever, you need to have a fundamental understanding of how we actually install an OS to a machine, physical or virtual, and then go from there. Go ahead and grab a USB drive. I put tape on it so that I know it's my bootable Ubuntu drive. Very cool. I'd recommend a 3.0 drive, but honestly, it doesn't matter all that much. It may just take a little longer if the drive is older. Next up, let's pick an OS. For a test bed, I usually recommend Windows 10 or 11 or Ubuntu, as they're definitely the most mainstream option, especially if you're just prototyping something. Finally, we're going to need some software to burn that image to a USB stick. And my go-to is always going to be a little program called Rufus. There's a link in the description to go grab the portable version, meaning you don't actually need to install anything. So go ahead, grab a copy, and I'll see you in the next step. All right, we've gathered everything we need, so it's time to put it into action. Insert the USB stick into your computer and launch Rufus. This is a good time to note that ideally you bought a new USB stick for this purpose, as installing the ISO is going to completely wipe any data that's presently on the USB stick. Rufus will warn you about this too, but listen, when a YouTuber says it also, you know it's legit.
We're very trustworthy people.
Upon the first launch, it'll ask if you want to allow automatic updates. I usually say no to this, but honestly, it's up to you. One of the things I really like and appreciate that Rufus does is that it will automatically identify the OS you're trying to install and fill out some of the information about it for you so there's less guesswork. Once you're all set, click Start and wait for the process to finish. Side note here, and this is something I may go into more in the future, but Rufus also doubles as a powerful formatting tool you can use for your devices, meaning this one application can be used for way more than just imaging. We have our installation media now, so let's head to the machine we're going to install it to. At this point, you'll need to enter into the boot menu, and the way to do that varies based on OS type and manufacturer, but usually it's going to be F8 or F12 during boot. I'd advise you to simply just look up how to access the boot menu on whatever type of PC you have. One thing I will say though is that sometimes you aren't able to access it via a keyboard combo. Sometimes, as is the case with the newer versions of Windows, you'll need to hold Shift while rebooting from the OS to be presented with the option. Either way, once you've gotten it, select that boot media and you're off to the races. But let's say you're just looking to toy around with the new OS. Complete a lab, something else, and you don't want to reimage an entire machine to get that clean environment. That's where virtualization comes in handy. Before we go any further, virtualization requires a special configuration to be enabled within your BIOS, and it could be quite possible that your machine doesn't support virtualization altogether. I'll show you what it looks like on an old desktop PC of mine, and you can poke around your BIOS to see if you have a similar setting. Once again, if you don't have this setting, or if it's not enabled, you can feel free to try virtualizing anyway. You'll just more than likely hit an error telling you the setting wasn't enabled properly. Virtualizing, at its very core, is just running another computer within your computer. To achieve that, we're going to use a portion of our computer's resources like memory, CPU, hard drive, network. In production environments, full networks are ran off of virtualization. Rather than purchasing 10 or so physical servers for your computer room, you can just buy one ultra powerful server like the HP ProLiant series and spin up a bunch of VMs within it. As I'm sure you can imagine, going from 10 servers to one saves the admin or engineer an enormous amount of time in configuration and maintenance. I feel like this never gets talked about enough as well, but remember, you gotta cool that data closet. So reducing the overall server footprint not only benefits you in your day-to-day, it also benefits the organization by costing them less electricity and AC if they're hosting these servers locally. Let's head on over to VirtualBox.com. One of the best things about VirtualBox is that it's free and it can run an enormous amount of environments. And once you install the guest additions to those VMs, it works good as hell to boot. It's going to ask you about setting up an unattended installation, which has more to do with how the OS is configured. I think that the CPU, memory, and disk allocations are relatively straightforward, but the network configuration can get tricky and mess you up if you're not careful. When I think about stuff like this, my mind always goes to an old quote from Pirates of the Caribbean. What the hell is he talking about? I know, bear with me. The Isle de Muerta from the movie is described as a place that cannot be found except by those who already know where it is. For lack of a better term, I think virtualization is one of the things that fits that bill. Like, let's just take the network setting to start. There's a bunch of different options under this dropdown, and they all do something. They all have a point. In order to know which option to use, you need to have a firm grasp of what you're trying to do with the VM in the first place. In project management, we define this in the project scope. Okay, theory aside, here's the practical. By default, VirtualBox and most virtualization environments utilize their own internal networking for the VMs. This allows the VMs to talk to one another, but isolates them from the outside network or the network that the host is attached to. Since virtualization is ideal for sandboxing and security testing, it makes sense that most of the time you want that VM cut off and isolated from other devices on your network. However, like in the case of my Jellyfin tutorial, if you want to run something on a virtual server and connect to it from another machine, you must first change that default setting over to a bridge to allow the VM to talk to your router, the same as any other devices on the network would. Thank you for checking out my video. I hope at this point you have a solid understanding of the options available to you when considering installing a new S to a machine or starting a new project. Later!